Now for Keller at Large, here's John.
Thanks for joining us. As you know, we like to talk about the economy a lot on this segment. Today, we're talking about an issue or set of issues that intersects with the economy of the community as a whole and your personal economy. As you know, if you've paid your energy bill lately, that is serious business. And here to talk about that intersection is Joe Curtatone. You may remember him as the mayor of Somerville for 18 years before taking his current post as president of the Northeast Clean Energy Council, a nonprofit trade organization focusing on clean energy and climate technology. Joe, good to have you here.
Great. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks.
Like old times.
Thanks for coming in. Yeah, it is. Now, your group and you personally are participants in this inaugural Climate Tech Global Conference next week here, this coming week here in Boston, is sort of showcasing the state's efforts to promote climate-based technologies and industry. And that's what I want to start out talking to you about. Governor Healy wants to sink $1.3 billion of our tax dollars into spurring the development of this area. Both she and Mayor Wu are pushing all sorts of environmental regulations and building codes designed to move us away from fossil fuels. You said in a recent interview that it's, quote, questionable whether or not the state can meet Healy's goal of a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by the end of this decade. Are we getting out a little far over our skis on all this?
No, and let me clarify. Whether or not Massachusetts or every state or the nation can meet its climate action goals by the timelines we've set forth is a question. And it speaks to, are we moving with enough deliberate pace in aligning regulation, policy, and investment and bringing projects and technologies online to get there? So I'd say, we need to move faster and we need to execute better. And I'd submit the governor and the mayor and leaders across the country like them are really setting a standard. Our goals need to be bold, we need to be deliberate, but we need to move two things at an accelerated pace. One, get off our dependency on fossil fuels, and along the same time, even faster, bring renewables and technologies online to market as fast as possible to move the clean energy transition. We cannot delay because the consequences compound over time.
Well, among those who think maybe we're moving a little too fast are builders and developers who are a crucial component of the private sector, that is, of finding a way out of our housing crisis here in the Commonwealth. They've been complaining for some time that some of these regulations we're talking about here make it too expensive for them to build, even as we're desperate for them to do so. How do you resolve that tension?
Yeah, and these are valid points in question. Cost is always going to be at the forefront of our concerns. Cost to the end user, whether you're a homeowner, renter, a real estate developer, or property owner, institution, or industry. And because that adds risk, and risk is a problem over time. We need to make the clean energy transition happen. It has to be the easy, affordable, transparent, equitable choice for every end user. So it's important we understand and recognize that to take on the climate crisis, we need a whole-of-society approach to unlock the opportunities of the climate economy.
Briefly, what does that mean?
That means everybody's in on it, not just your leaders or transactional authority, not just the private sector, but every citizen and walk of life has the obligation to be involved in that. But the opportunity to participate in the economy must be genuine, and that's why everyone has to be part of that. So we need that perspective from the private sector, understand, hey, if we're going to do it, understand what we're facing for risks and uncertainty, because on the private sector side, we need private investment to align with public investment to make our climate action goals happen. And if we don't hear their perspective about the challenges they're facing to executing these projects or the costs we may not have recognized and how to alleviate that risk, we won't get there fast enough.
All right, I got to take a break. I want to follow up on that. When we continue our conversation about our energy future, economically, environmentally, it's going to affect all of us. More to come on that when we continue in a moment. Welcome back to our conversation with Joe Curtatone, former mayor of Somerville, now president of the Northeast Clean Energy Council. And, the push has been on for a while. Look, I don't think there are too many sane people who don't understand how important it is to protect our environment, particularly if you live in this part of the country. Take away our beautiful environmental resources, and what do you have? The question is, as we've been discussing, how do you balance economic reality with these goals? One area of this that I watch fairly closely is electric vehicles. It was all the rage for a while. The Tesla was the hottest selling car in the market. That's changed. Sales growth has slowed dramatically for EVs. Tesla stock is tanking. Why? What's going on, and what needs to change to get that trend back on track? Or do you think we need it to get back on track?
Well, I think we need to continue to accelerate it, and I'd submit there are a few factors on the Tesla issue. There is more competition. There are more EVs. They're not the only show in town, which is great. We're seeing more and more options come up for consumers. And this is an important point because at the end of the day, we're going to act as consumers. As a consumer, how we shop for our commodities or our vehicles or our news has to be easy, accessible, affordable. It has to be the easy choice, not just to what's more convenient. And if you can't get an EV because we're not producing enough,
or charge
it, you're going to like, well, it's not easy enough for me. That is starting to change over time, and it is picking up. We're seeing massive amounts of commitment investment from the national and different state levels and the EV infrastructure, and that's important to accelerate that. And we also have to understand that it can't be a choice just for those who are more privileged. Where do you charge your car? I live in the most densely populated city in New England. Not everybody in Somerville has a driveway. Parts of Boston don't. So it can't just be for the more affluent folks, communities. You can put a charging has to be readily available and make it easy. So we need to continue to accelerate that, and I'd submit it'll happen over time.
You mentioned government support.
Yep.
A lot of that from the Biden administration.
Right.
If he loses in the fall, what happens?
Well, if President Biden loses to the former president in the fall, there's a lot of things at stake: our democracy, our reproductive rights, and yes, our planet. Former President Trump, well beyond the EV infrastructure, has made it clear. In the recent Washington Post article, it was outlined how he made a pledge to oil executives: you raise me $1 billion for my reelection, and I'll undo as much as possible from President Biden's administration and their climate action policies. There's a lot at stake, and the people who will suffer are the most vulnerable population. The people we're sworn to represent. The benefits of the climate economy go to people, place, and planet. So people in coastlines whose homes are being ravaged every year or in general by severe weather, those who are suffering the negative consequences from a health side as a result of the climate crisis, and those who will not realize the economic benefits of the new climate economy, which is moving at a rapid pace, especially in places like Massachusetts. They'll suffer the most.
We got less than a minute left here, but I want to bring this conversation full circle. You've argued that while beefing up wind and solar energy is great, we should also promote other sources of energy like hydroelectric power. But we've seen, just in the recent past, major infrastructure projects that would have brought a lot of hydropower from Quebec to us have been shot down by voters or dropped by companies because of the resistance. Now, I don't necessarily want to call this NIMBYism, but let's call it NIMBYism.
Yeah.
Isn't that a big problem to this entire clean energy agenda?
Citing infrastructure is a challenge. It always has been. It will be. However, it is a big challenge we must overcome to achieve our clean energy goals, meet our climate,
and make that
and get to the end user.
How do you overcome that while you're preaching the gospel of including everyone?
It goes beyond just regulating it and saying it has to happen. It's also on all of us, and from the private side, to outreach and be proactive and listen to voices in communities where we need to build trust and confidence and credibility with us in this movement. However, let's be clear, and because we started off talking about there's the big climate tech conference in Boston next week. That is going to be the inaugural convening of the leaders in thought and policy and innovation and investment, clean energy, right here in one of the greatest ecosystems in the world of the climate economy, Metro Boston, and soon become the global premier event, converging with the governor's leadership on the Mass Leads Act, which will make a major investment like we did in life sciences. We've seen the success of that for the Commonwealth with the economic outcomes over time as a result of the new climate economy. At the same time, going back to what happens in the election, there is a coordinated effort to use falsehoods, facts, inaccurate facts, to not attack whether the climate crisis is real, but the science and projects. And that was behind the leveraging the NIMBYism to try to stop the transmission line for Hydro-Quebec's clean hydropower coming to Massachusetts, which now won in court. But you know who suffered? The people who would have got that clean energy sooner. So we need to be aware that in addition to the challenges of siting infrastructure, there is a strategic and coordinated effort by nefarious forces in the fossil fuel industry and right-wing politics to use false propaganda to attack and erode confidence.
Well, that's a good tease for a follow-up conversation, and we'll look forward to having you back to have that sooner rather than later. Joe Curtatone, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.